Welcome to Ranting and Raving. Going to take a look here at the Saints' schedule for the 2022-2023 season. Going to predict each of the games. Now, this is obviously before Week 1, so this is on what I think the Saints will be and what I think the other teams will be. All of this can be wrong. Quite easily, actually. It's almost impossible to correctly predict the whole season. Some teams will be better than you think. Some teams will be worse than you think. A couple of injuries happen. I mean, look at last year. If Will Lutz doesn't get hurt, the Saints make the playoffs. If Jameis Winston doesn't get hurt, the Saints make the playoffs and possibly make some noise in the playoffs, even with how bad that offense was. Things can happen. So, am I saying all of this is guaranteed to be right? No. This is just what I think is going to happen. And each week, we'll do a little bit more in-depth look at who the opposition is, and then obviously we'll review the previous week and see whether or not I've been right or wrong. So I'm going to keep a running tally of how many of these I get right and how many of these I get wrong as the season goes along. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started with Week 1. The Dirty Birds, which, of course, the single most Saints thing possible is to somehow lose to what might be the worst roster in the NFL. That would be the most Saints thing ever. But I don't think it's going to happen. I do think it's going to be a close game. I think it'll be way closer than it has any right to be. I think the defense is going to give up at least one dumbass touchdown. And by a dumbass touchdown, I mean they're going to completely bust a coverage. I think it's going to happen at least once. I think it'll probably happen to Pitts. I think they'll probably have at least one stupid turnover. But I just don't think the Falcons are good enough to be able to beat a fully healthy Saints team unless they beat themselves. And I do think they have enough quality veterans and good enough coaching to be able to do that. Also, the upgrades to wide receiver, I am predicting that Michael Thomas is going to play Week 1. With Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas, and Chris Olave out there, I just don't think the Falcons defense will be able to put anywhere close to enough pressure on the offense or stop them enough, also with a healthy Alvin Kamara. And I think the Saints will win by 4 or more, so more than a field goal, but it will be a closer game than it has any right to be simply because it's a division game, and these are the damn Saints, and they do a lot of drinking, but not as much as the Falcons. But at the end of the day, as you can see on the screen here, or if you're an audio listener, the 3 reasons why I think they're going to win. Again, Falcons might be the worst roster in the league. Marcus Mariota is not a good quarterback. I do think he's going to start the first 6 to 8 games of the year before they let Desmond Ridder take over. Ridder is talented. I don't think he's going to be great, but he could be really good. We won't know. Time will tell, and a lot of that is going to depend on what kind of tools they can give around him. I mean, the Falcons may have. As if you take Pitts out of it, like including Pitts, they still have a much better passing arsenal of passing weapons than the Saints had last year. But if you take Pitts out of it, you just look at their wide receiver group, they might actually be worse. Obviously the drafting of London, but I'm not sure if he's going to play or not. Again, I haven't looked deep into the Falcons roster. I know he got banged up a little bit. I wasn't incredibly high on him, but I do think he's a good player. But all that aside, again, Mariota at quarterback, I don't think he's a very good quarterback. In fact, I know he's not a very good quarterback. They don't really have the edge rushers, and the weakness of the Saints' offensive line right now, I think you're going to create more problems if you can get pass rushes off the edge versus the interior. As weird as that is to say, here's my logic behind that. To this quarterback, with Drew, it was the opposite, and with most pure pocket passers, it's the opposite. If you can get interior pressure, and Grady Jarrett can absolutely do that, you can create havoc. And of course, like if Ruiz just pulls a Ruiz and completely busts a blocking assignment and Jameis gets creamed, then yeah, that's going to be a big problem. But Winston isn't a running quarterback, but he is a quarterback who can run. And he does throw on the move decently well, and he has the arm strength to punish teams for that. If you can get edge pressure, you can contain him, and that is one of his weapons, the ability to scramble and look like a damn baby giraffe, but make guys miss and make plays. Edge pressure helps contain that. I don't think the Falcons can create enough edge pressure to contain it to the point where even if they do occasionally get internal pressure, I think Winston will be able to escape and either get the ball out or get the ball out to people and make plays down the field. And so for me, again, this is not a good roster. This is not a good team. And you look at those factors, I don't think the Falcons will win, but it would be the most Saints shit ever to lose this game. The next one on the list here, the Tompa Bay Buccaneers. I also have a win here for a few reasons. Number one, it's a regular season game. Number two, Jared Cook doesn't exist on this roster. Number three, no, I'm just kidding. Let's go to the actual reasons. Tampa Bay's offensive line has been absolutely ravaged by injury. So Tom Brady is not mobile at all. Now, their receiving core might actually be better this year than last year. Like, Antonio Brown is a better wide receiver than Gage by, like, quite a lot. But that wasn't a fully engaged or fully healthy Antonio Brown. Russell Gage is actually sneaky really, really good and a very, very good fit for Brady. And so, like, they still have a ton of weapons. And Tom's known for getting the ball out quick. That said, the Saints have been able to get a lot of pressure on them, and with them having a devastated interior offensive line, I think they're going to be able to get enough pressure. I think they're still going to have the coverage capabilities. Now, I do think the Buccaneers are going to be able to score on the Saints more than they did last year because, especially specific to this matchup, Marcus Williams' ability to completely erase the deep passing game because of his range and ball skills. It's the combination of two. He wasn't just a threat to break up passes. He was a threat to take the ball away, and that does change the decision-making for the quarterbacks. That had a huge impact on the vertical passing game for the Bucs, which has been a huge part of their success since Tom went there. But even with that change, the Saints really are uniquely built to take away what they do best. You have the one-on-one corners, you have the pass rush, you have the speed in the front seven, especially with DeMario. You have the versatility and the ability to blitz and do things creatively with DeMario, with Tyrann. Tyrann will be able to give you a lot of what CD gave you. PJ Williams can give you a lot of what CD gave you. CD in his role is still better than those two players in that role. But the Saints will still have the ability to do the things they need to do to negatively impact the Bucs. And the Bucs don't have a great defense. They have an okay defense, but they don't have a great defense. And the Saints' offense should be significantly better than it was last year. So while I expect the Bucs to have more success on offense, unless the Saints go on a massive turnover binge, I still fully expect them to win because the Bucs simply do not have the secondary they're going to need to be able to keep the passing game down enough, which will then also open up the underneath and the running game for AK. And I could see this being a game, especially, again, if that O-line is as bad as I think it's going to be for Tampa, they could get dump trucked. This could be another one of those like 35-3 games. It really, really could. Now, of course, it's Brady, it's the Saints, things can happen, but what I'm going to predict is a win for this, and I think a pretty comfortable one. So the next game here, it's crazy that we start the season with 3 division games. It's another win, but I will say this. The Panthers of the other 3 teams in the division, if you talk about each team's best case scenario, I actually think the Panthers are the biggest competition for the Saints rather than the Bucs. Now, if the Bucs were fully healthy, if Tom Brady had a fully healthy offensive line, obviously it's the Bucs. But they don't. The Panthers have a pass rush, have an okay defense. Like, they're not great, but they're okay. They have a lot of passing weapons, believe it or not, and when Christian McCaffrey is on the field, he gives everybody problems and has given this Saints defense problems. And I'm not a huge Baker guy, but I'm not going to be surprised if Baker looks really good in Carolina at times. And I think that DJ Moore is going to be a guy that he's going to have chemistry with. And I think C-Mac, again, if healthy, is a guy that he's going to have chemistry with. But, all of that said, I'm predicting off of what do I expect to happen. If the Panthers play their A game and the Saints play their A game, the Saints should win, but probably by a touchdown. If the Panthers play their A game and the Saints play their B game, they could lose. But I don't think the Panthers are going to play their A game, and I don't think the Saints are going to play enough below their level. Because the reality is the Saints have the best player at pretty much every position group. They've got the best running back, although that's close. They've got the best quarterback, although it could be if we get the Tampa Bay version of Jameis, it's closer. But I really do think he's grown and progressed as a quarterback over the last couple of years, getting to learn from Drew, getting all that time around Sean and Pete, and being in this system and having these weapons. I think he's convincingly the better quarterback. They have the better O-line, although that's closer than it should be, or ideally would be. They have the better defensive line, especially if two first plays. Who first, who cares? Although, hey, his only like good play in the NFL came against the Panthers, so maybe he shows up again. We'll see. Obviously, they have the best linebacker because DeMario he's a top 3 linebacker in the league. So, until he's not, better secondary, better corners, better safeties. You go offense, defense. The Saints have the best player at every position group. It matters. Rule is a terrible coach, and that does matter. I'm still not convinced DA is going to be a great coach. Sean was, however people feel about him, and all the issues with Sean are warranted. Sean was still a great coach. I don't think at this point we can't say DA is a great coach. We'll see. And really the last reason, even though I think Baker is at times going to look in Carolina, I think he's at times going to look better than he did in Cleveland, even though that Cleveland roster was stacked. I don't think it was necessarily stacked to fit his skill set and maximize him. I actually do think this Panthers team is a better fit for him. And I think he'll play better with a chip on his shoulder. But even with that said, he's #not good until proven otherwise, and I don't think Christian McCaffrey can carry them all the way to a win against what should be a top 5 defense and a vastly improved offense. So I do have the Saints winning, even though obviously this is a road game and they have 2 of their first 3 games on the road. So week 4, yes, they're the Vikings. By the way, any of my family members who see this are going to hate me because like 2/3 of my family is from Minnesota and they're all Vikings fans, and they hate the fact that I'm a Saints fan, and it makes me that much happier. But the Vikings, the week 4, the Vikings are playing the Saints in London. Technically, it's a home game, but really we lost a home game because the NFL just loves to give the Saints a long, deep stroke of hatred. This is one of the games that I do kind of see as a coin flip game. The Vikings were really highly not good last year. I think part of that was a fractured locker room. Part of that was Cousins having issues with the head coach. Part of that was the head coach being was pretty clearly burnt out. But a big part of it was just it's not a great roster. That said, the Vikings have a lot of weapons. And if it got into a shootout, look, Dalvin Cook is legit. It is a legitimate argument. If Dalvin Cook wasn't constantly banged up, you could have a real argument between who's a better overall running back between him and AK. Now, he's constantly banged up, and he doesn't have anything close to Alvin's overall production. His peaks have been pretty close to Alvin's peaks, but he doesn't have the consistency. He doesn't have the consistency of being on the field, even though AK's had some injury issues. Cook has been way worse. So, obviously Justin Jefferson's, I mean, legitimately, unless Michael Thomas is all the way back, Justin Jefferson will be the best wide receiver that'll touch the field in London, or the pitch. But I think I said that right. Whatever. Um, but at the end of the day, look, I don't see any pass rush coming from the Vikings. Nothing meaningful. I don't see them having any type of coverage. Their defense was bad last year. I don't see it being great this year. The Saints' massively improved passing attack is going to make a difference. The Saints' corners and front seven, I think they'll have enough to limit. Like, Dalvin Cook might get an explosive play. He could go for a 60-yard touchdown and have a nice fantasy game, and then the rest of his carries could be, basically 3 yards a carry, and he looks good on the stat line, but doesn't dominate the game, doesn't affect the outcome. I could absolutely see that type of result, but I do think they have the ability to contain Cook. I do think they have the corners with the ability to cover Thielen and cover Jefferson enough. Again, they'll probably make some plays, but they have the ability to reduce those guys, and most importantly, to get pressure on Cousins, Cousins is a guy. If he's in a good rhythm, he can get he can really get rolling. He can pick you apart. But he's also a guy where if you get him under pressure, he starts making bad decisions. He starts making some really, really dumb turnovers. And I am going to predict this is going to be one of those games for him. And look, the final point, I mentioned him earlier. The last time Alvin Kamara played these guys, he was on Christmas. I think he ran for 6 touchdowns. It's AK exists. He's healthy. It's early in the season. I think that's enough to beat them, honestly. They should win this game. The fifth one, like, honestly, and I know DK Metcalf is a really, really, talented player. I think he's a little bit overrated, but he's an incredibly talented player. Look, if Atlanta doesn't have the worst roster in the league, the Seahawks do. Their defense is trash. They're not good at all. They're terrible. They don't really have a pass rush. They don't really have coverage. They're not the Legion of Doom. They're the Legion of Doom and Gloom, as in that's the feeling of all their freaking fans who stole their moniker from Texas A&M but act like it's theirs. Anyway, yeah, they don't have a quarterback. Like, Geno is not good. The other guys there, I'm not going to bother remembering their names. I know they got the one guy who one time was like singing along to a rap song, like in like the whitest like junior in college moment ever, which, hey, look, I'm white, and at one point in time I was a junior in college, and there probably was the potential of footage of me doing something similar to that on a basketball court when we had music playing. So not like I can judge him that much, but the footage doesn't exist. You guys can't prove I did it, so... And, hey, regardless, if we did have the footage, I'd be getting mocked for it, so I'm going to mock him for it. But I'm not going to bother saving his name because he doesn't matter, and he's trash. Geno's okay, but he's not good. They have one wide receiver. They have no running backs. They have no defense. The Saints should win this game. And so I'm going to predict the Saints to win this game. Like, it's just that simple. Could they lose it? Yeah, any given Sunday you can lose. But the most Saints game to lose in these first 5 is Week 1 in Atlanta. That would be the most Saints shit ever. The rest of these games, they should win. Will they win? Again, we'll find out, but they should win. Here's the first loss. Week 6, Bengals, the Bayou Bengals, returning to the Superdome for a lot of their best players. Trey Hendrickson is going to kill James Hurst. That is one of my biggest predictions for this game. The team that drafted him, that developed him, that forgave him for allowing the Minnesota Miracle to happen, and then let him walk in free agency where he became a hot top-end pass rusher and helped lead the Bengals defense to helping them make the Super Bowl last year. Hurst is a fine NFL tackle, but Trey's going to kill him. This is the most dangerous offense in the league, with Mixon, with Burrow, with like Jamar Chase alone, Higgins. I'm not saying they're the best offense in the league, but they're the most dangerous. And honestly, Jamar Chase alone. Like, Lattimore can have his best day, And there's maybe 3 receivers in the league that he can have his best day and they can go for 100 yards plus and 2 touchdowns because they just had a better day. And Jamar Chase is one of them. I think Jamar Chase has an argument to be the best receiver in the league. And if he does what I think he's going to do this year, it won't be an argument at the end of the year. I don't think they're going to be able to generate enough pass rush to and that says less about how awesome I think the Bengals passing protection is going to be, although I think it will be better this year, and more of just by week 6 I think Two First is going to be banged up. I think Who First will be a guy that the Bengals tackles are going to line up against and go, who's this guy? Can I line up against him every week? I'm going to make the freaking Pro Bowl. And Cam can't do it all on his own. And then I could be completely wrong, but I don't think they're going to have the pass rush. I think that the lack of Marcus Williams is going to, again, open up the deep passing game more. And again, all of this is, by the way, just all of this is without considering the potential legal issues of Marcus May and everything that comes with that, which could change all of these predictions. But at this point, nothing has come down, so we're operating going into week 1 with the information that is available. But the best version of the Bengals can beat the best version of these Saints. Now, could the best version of these Saints beat the Bengals? Yes, but I do think that Burrow and Chase and Trey, no one cares about Eli, coming back to the Superdome, I think it's going to mean more to them than it will to the Saints. I think the Saints are going to be 5-0, and they're going to be riding high, and they're going to think that they're untouchable, and I think the Bengals are going to catch them sleeping. I think they're going to jump on them early. I think they're going to put up big numbers. I think they're going to score 30+, and I don't think the Saints will be able to match. Hope I'm wrong, but that's going to be my prediction for this. The next is at the Cardinals. This is a win. I don't think the Cardinals are good. I don't think Kyler Murray is good. I think the Cardinals were in a terrible spot. I think Kyler Murray is good enough to be good, but not good enough to be great. I think he's an incredibly fun player. I don't think he's a great player. I think they were in a tough spot because they had to give him that contract, but because they didn't obviously want to be in quarterback purgatory, and you can't have no quarterback. But I think them giving him that contract is a lot like giving Trey on the Atlanta Hawks in the NBA. I think it's a lot like giving him a supermax. Like, yeah, you're gonna have, like Trey Young, yeah, you're gonna have to do it, but he's got a ceiling, and like your hope is going to have to be that someone else is going to come in and bump him down to the number 2 guy, or you're not going to go beyond a certain point, because the good teams are going to give this player problems forever, and he's not going to be able to overcome it. He's not good enough to overcome it, and that's how I feel about Kyler Murray. I think they have a miniature receiving core across the board. I think the Saints have the coverage and the versatility to be able to affect them. I just don't think they match up well with the Saints. I don't think they're going to be able to have an impact. I don't think defensively they're going to be able to cover the Saints at all. And the last reason, honestly, that I think the Saints are going to beat the Cardinals is Cliff Kingsbury exists. I think he's a bad coach. And the Saints should win this game, and I think they should win it actually pretty comfortably. I think the Cardinals match up terribly with the Saints. I don't think it's going to go well for them at all. I do have them beating the Raiders. This is another one of those games obviously the Buccaneers, especially if they were healthy, that game's much more of a coin flip to me. The Vikings, believe it or not, weirdly is a coin flip game to me. This is another game that is definitely a coin flip game to me. The Raiders were good last year. I do think they're going to be a lot better with Devontae Adams. Waller is the guy that actually scares me. Marshawn has had incredibly consistent performances against Adams. He just matches up with him so well. I don't think Devontae Adams is going to be able to have a huge impact on the Saints, just against the Saints. I think Marshawn will be able to contain him again. But I do worry about Waller. I do worry about a little bit about Jacobs. Again, the Saints should still be a really good run defense, but there's always that one. There's always a couple of games. I do think the Raiders are going to be, I think they're going to be good this year. I don't think they're going to be as good as people are hyping them to be, but I do think they'll be good. But at the end of the day, okay, number one, never trust the Raiders. Like, if they're supposed to be good, there's all these good things about them. They could totally just completely fall ass over tea kettle and be terrible by week 8. That would be the most Raiders shit ever. Like, really, post 19, like, really, the last 20 to 30 years, especially the last 20 years, like, the Raiders, the last 20 years, have been, like, up there with the Browns and the Jaguars for teams that just consistently do really stupid shit for no reason and, like, have, like, one random good year and then are terrible again. But the last part for me is just like, as much as I do respect some of the Raiders' weapons, I do think Carr is a above average quarterback. I think he's the second best quarterback the Saints would have played up to this point. Well, no, third best. You know, as much as I can't stand Brady, he's, you know, it'd be Burrow, then Brady, then him. As far as up to this point in the season, yes, I do think Burrow is at this stage in their careers better than Tom. But I just don't think the Raiders D is going to be able to contain the Saints. It could be a shootout. It could be a blowout. The Raiders could win. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I don't see it happening. I do see the Ravens beating the Saints. Yeah, even though this is a home game, number one, the Saints' home magic that they had at like the peak of the Drew Brees, Sean Payton era, it's been gone for a long time. But I have them losing this game. I think that mobile quarterbacks are going to continue to give them problems until they get some goddamn speed in the front seven. And look, if 2 first is healthy and he's the best version of himself, Marcus Davenport is the best version of himself. It completely changes this prediction. But we have yet to see that. We have yet to see him be the best version of himself consistently throughout a season. And by week 9, you can pretty much pencil him in for being banged up. And the only person explosive enough to impact the edges quickly enough to affect a guy like Lamar is him. And without that, I do think Lamar is going to be a huge problem for the Saints. I think the Ravens defense is 100% for real. I think they'll match up well enough with the Saints to give them problems. And low-key, Marcus Williams has owned Jameis Winston. And I could 100% see Marcus Williams' revenge game, the guy they never should have let get out the door. I could see Jameis throwing 2 or 3 picks. Some under duress, some just, Marcus Williams is going to do Marcus Williams things. He's going to get to places that you don't think he can get to, and he's had, I believe, multi-interception games against Jameis, and I think he's going to do it again. The Saints, the next game is at Pittsburgh. I do have them winning this game. It's weird to say this, like even though they have a good defense, I don't think they have a great defense. Like, TJ Watt is a problem, and if he murders James Hurst, like, the whole the whole offense kind of falls apart. But I think the Saints can score enough on that defense. I think the Steelers will score. I don't think they'll be able to score enough on our defense, although I really like George Pickens in the draft. And him just coming out and having like a 160-yard game and 3 touchdowns just to piss me off and take a dump all over the Saints would be just the most it would just be the most Saintsy shit. But I actually don't think Trubisky will be playing in this game. I do think he will be benched long before week 10. But if Trubisky plays, we win by 20. But if he doesn't, then I could absolutely see the Saints losing, but I am going to predict a win. Again, they should win this game. We will see if they do or not. Believe it or not, I have them beating the Rams as well, the descending Super Bowl champions. It is tough being the defending champs. You get every team's best shot. You do have the hangover of the previous season. Not to mention Matt Stafford has the elbow issues. I think Cooper Kupp's an amazing player. I think their head coach is massively overrated. Look, Aaron Donald exists, and as long as Aaron Donald exists, they can win any game simply because Aaron Donald exists and can literally destroy your entire game plan. But this is a bit of a revenge game for the Saints, having them in the dome. Um, some of the, there's still a lot of players on this team that remember the screw job in 2018. I think the Saints have a good enough secondary to defend them and to deal with, Captain 11 personnel. And they don't really have a run game. I think the Saints will be able to get pressure. I think the defense will carry this game. I do not see this being a high-scoring affair, but I am going to predict that the Saints are going to win. And I have several reasons, one of which is kind of tongue-in-cheek, but not entirely tongue-in-cheek. I do think the Saints are going to lose to the 49ers. I actually think the 49ers are the best team in that division. I'm not a huge Trey Lance guy, but I do think that Trey Lance, as we get closer to the end of the regular season, will find a groove. I think he is going to be an impact player for them, and I think his athleticism is going to be a huge weapon for Shanahan. Also, just like straight out, like this is a real thing. Like some teams just kind of seem to have your freaking number, and the 49ers have had the Saints number. Most specifically, they have eaten DA's defense alive. Shanahan has just cooked Dennis Allen almost every damn time they've gone against each other. And I don't think the new safety tandem, again, assuming that May is even playing, I don't think it's going to make a big difference on that. Again, if Marcus Davenport is healthy and the best version of himself, this prediction could change. Like, he has game wrecker capabilities. But we can't rely on that, so I'm not assuming it. And unless he does that, they have been uniquely, as much as the Saints have had certain other teams' numbers, like Tampa Bay, the 49ers have had theirs, they have eaten the Saints' defense alive consistently. I don't have any reason to believe they won't. Also, I believe Adam of the Saint Twitter podcast is going to this game, and we all know when Adam goes to games, the Saints lose. And that's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but not entirely. So I'm going to predict that the Saints are going to lose. The Week 13, they go at Tompa Bay. Again, I'm literally pretty much copy-pasting the other components. I know in this game, Tampa's at home instead of in the Dome. Their O-line will likely be awful all year. I definitely expect it to be bad by this point in the year. It's even possible Brady's hurt by this point in time. The Saints match up with them. Their secondary is poor. The Saints should win this game, and I actually kind of think the Saints should win this game more convincingly than they should in Week 2. Week 15, the Falcons, we've already talked about them. I do think Ritter will be starting by this point. I do think DA will be able to confuse him. I think he'll be able to do some things with his legs. Like, I could definitely see them scoring 20, especially I think I'd see like a garbage time touchdown or two. They're still a really bad team. And one thing that I'll kind of put out there, and again, like I said, Week 1, the Saints losing could be the most Saints shit ever, but don't discount this. The Saints do have that kind of like that new coach smell. I could see them not having one of those typical Saints just take the other team lightly type games this year, simply because those organizational changes at the top, if DA doesn't completely coach just as a Sean clone, some of those lapses that would happen with the Saints, I do think some of them were Sean's fault. I mean, obviously the head coach is never without blame, but some of it I do think would happen simply because, he'd be like, don't eat the cheese. He'd do all of this stuff, and it's like, yeah, coach, we've heard it all before. And then you don't really take it to heart, and then sure enough, you can lose a game that you shouldn't, and Sean is sitting there foaming at the mouth, chewing on a tire, all of that. But again, at the end of the day, the Falcons are a bad team, and I could absolutely see the Saints just not having one of those letdown games this year, losing to a team they shouldn't, simply because of just having that new look, that new feel. It's not that Sean was a bad coach; he's exactly the opposite. But sometimes change is good. The next game is them playing the Browns. My number one reason for picking against this game, this is kind of tongue-in-cheek, but also kind of really not. The Saints tried really, really, really hard to add Deshaun Watson, even though they knew that he had over 30 different women who were charging him with sexual harassment and inappropriate activities. This has now been validated. Like, it has been confirmed this happened. The NFL only suspended him for a few games because the NFL doesn't give a shit about women. But hey, they're going to put pink on the helmets for a couple of games every year, and that means they love women. They don't care about women at all. They care about their money, and teams care about their money and their wins. And if you believe anything other than that, you are fooling yourself. So I do think the Saints are going to have some bad dick karma for this. And also, Watson's a really good player. And I could absolutely see the Saints going into this game. I don't think the Browns will be that great this year record-wise. But I could absolutely the Saints going into this game cocky, having a great record, and absolutely getting rolled by the Browns and Watson. Watson, again, is another guy who's had a ton of success against DA in this defense. Also, Garrett is just going to murder Hurst if Hurst is starting at this point. Maybe Penning's back by then. Maybe he's continued his development. Maybe, that works out. But it's not something I'm going to bet on at this point in time. And also, just look, losing the week 1 in Atlanta would be the most Saints shit ever. Or winning that game but losing the next game against Atlanta would be the most Saints ever. But really, the most Saints shit ever would be to have a great record and to go into Cleveland, who probably won't be a very good team, and get steamrolled by Watson and the Browns, the guy that they tried to move heaven and earth to add because, it turns out the team that was hiding help to help hide and deal with child predators, priests, because there's a difference. Turns out they don't actually care about sexual abuse. Next one's at the Eagles. Fuck the Eagles. Fuck their fans. Yeah, I said it. I don't care. Philly fans are they're the worst fans in the NFL. They're just Philly fans in general I'll take that. Philly fans are the second worst fan base in America. But I can't stand the Eagles. That's okay. They hate us too. That's fine. Here's the thing. I have the Saints beating the Eagles. I could see them losing because CeeDee has like a forced fumble and a pick and just completely gets Michael Thomas pissed out of his head and gets him to swing at him again and gets him thrown out of the game, and the Eagles win. I could completely see that happening. That would be completely reasonable. I think he is going to be a really good player for them. I think he is going to be a difference maker for them. However, here's the reality. The last couple of times the Eagles have beat the Saints, they faced Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian. They have been able to run on the Saints in large part because the Saints offense has been unable to stay on the field at all. The defense has gotten tired and then has allowed explosive plays in the run game. That's what happened. Go back and watch the games. Hurst is going to have to complete more than a dozen passes to win. The Saints offense is going to be able to move on the Eagles. The Saints offense is going to be able to score points. And because of that, I think the Saints defense is going to be able to focus in on the running and shut it down and force him to be a real, authentic quarterback. And he's not going to be able to do it consistently enough. And the Saints are going to beat him. That's my prediction. But again, incredibly Saints thing to do to trade CeeDee over there for a bag of fucking chips. And him to have a really good year, but have a great game against the Saints and totally flip the game. Would be entirely predictable. But the Saints should win this game. The Saints should beat the Panthers the last week of the season, too. Again, the Panthers aren't great. I could see the Saints losing this because they already have the division wrapped up. That is a thing that could happen. But the Panthers have a good but not great roster. It's Baker at the end of the year. Rule exists. The division could be tied up, so they might not have to try, but I don't think it will be. And I do think the Saints will be fighting for playoff seeding. I don't think they'll be the 1 seed, but they could be. The NFC is not great this year. So it is possible they could be fighting for the 1 seed. And so I do think they will have to try. Even if they don't have to try, I think they can still beat the Panthers. My final prediction for the record, if I added this all up properly, is 12-5. I could absolutely see, I could see 13-4. I could honestly, I could see 14 wins. I could also see like 9 and 10 wins. Like there's definitely a degree of variance here. Obviously, health plays a big part in that. Jameis's his progression plays a huge part in that. There's other components as well. Again, the health of Marcus Davenport, Peyton Turner being even a mildly useful NFL defensive lineman in his second year. Cesar Ruiz continuing to make the progress that he showed in the preseason just to be frickin' average. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this, which for every team that's the case. But the Saints do have more variance than some of the other better teams in the league. That said, I still think they're going to have a top 5 defense. I think they could have a fringe, best case scenario, I think they could have a fringe top 5 offense, especially with the improved receiving core and AK, like that combination, especially if AK plays the full season, I could see this being really, really successful. So I'm going to predict 12-5/13-4. We're going to see how this goes. This has been a long video. I appreciate you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed this. And if fans from other fan bases have a problem with this, feel free to hop in the comments. If you have a reason why you think my team isn't going to beat your team, feel free to state it. If you're just going to come in the comments being an asshat, I'm going to give you the other barrel. So feel free to come in. Everybody else, like, comment, subscribe. It is always appreciated. Hope you guys enjoyed the show, and more content coming from me soon.